Hello students, today we're going to work on solving two-step equations, which in your book is Algebra Chapter 2, Section 1. Before we do that, let's do a quick review of some properties that we learned in the last chapter. So, let's take a look at problems 1 through 4. This would be a great time for you to pause your screen and work on solving these problems on your own in your notebook or on your laptop. Hopefully you've paused this screen and you have had a chance to work on these problems on your own. So let's take a look at some of these answers. For number 1, we have negative 3/10, and then we're adding 3/10 to that, and that's equal to 0. So the correct property for that would be the additive inverse property. And notice that's the reason why it is, because we are adding the opposite or inverse of what the original problem was. In number 2, remember how we took our parentheses and reassociated them or moved which numbers they're grouped with. So in the first instance on the left, we have 2 plus 8 grouped together or associating together. And on the right hand side, it's now 3 and 2. So that's the associative property of addition. In problem number 3, notice that we changed the order of our numbers, which commutative properties also starts with CO or change order, and this would be the commutative property of multiplication. For number 4, we have 5 times the quantity 2 plus x, and on the right hand side we see that we just distributed that 5 to each item in the quantity. So now we're going to talk about the purpose. So at the end of this lesson, you should be able to solve two-step equations. And this purpose is important because it tells us what you're supposed to get out of this lesson, so that if you've left this screencast and you haven't or you don't feel comfortable that you can do this, then this might be a good time for you to ask your teacher and review the problem again, or maybe even watch another resource that your teacher has given you. So, in order to solve two-step equations, what we must always do is isolate the variable, or get the variable by itself. In this case, our variable is h. So we're going to take a quick look at our hint. And again, it's just reiterating what we did. We must get the x by itself. So in order for that to happen, we need to get this h by itself by moving the things around it, which in this case would be the 14 and the divide by 5. Notice how the 2 is okay because it's on the opposite side of the equal sign. So the first thing we're going to do is subtract 14 to both sides. And the reason why we do this is so that we can, again, get the h by itself. And because the 14 is positive, we have to subtract or use inverse operations. So subtract 14 to both sides. When simplified, that gives us h divided by 5. Notice how the h divided by 5 we just brought down. The equal sign we also just brought down. And 2 minus 14 is negative 12. Now, in order for us to get the h by itself again, we have to think, what is the inverse, or what is the opposite of divide 5? Which, in this instance, is multiply by 5 to both sides. And by simplifying, we get h is equal to negative 60. So let's try another problem again. But this time, we're going to throw in a word problem. So, in example 2, we're going to solve for x again. And the problem states, if you work at a shop and made $120 in 1 day after taxes, you get paid $10 per hour, but you have to take out $20 for taxes. Can you figure out how many hours you worked? So, we have to think about writing an equation and how we could best do it for this particular example. Now we know our total amount of dollars raised is $120. So just organizing our data, we're going to write work for 1 day equals $120. Well, now the work for 1 day should include probably the number of hours that we worked times 10, right? Because that would tell us how much we made. But then we're also going to have to subtract $20. So in the equation we put below, we have 10x minus 20. equals $120. The 10 represents the amount of money we make per hour. The x represents the number of hours we worked. And the minus 20 is just us taking out taxes. And that's going to be equal to $120. Now in this instance, it shouldn't be any different. We're just isolating the variable or solving for x. So we are going to add 20 to both sides. Now if we wanted to divide by 10 first, we are more than welcome to do that. But I always tend to undo the addition or subtraction because it makes solving for the variable easier when we do the division and multiplication last. So by simplifying, we get 10x, again because we didn't touch it, negative 20 plus 20 goes away, equals we bring down, and 120 plus 20 is 140. Now, to solve for this, we need to get the x by itself. So somehow we need to get rid of the times 10 or the 10 times x portion. So the opposite of times is divide by 10 to both sides. And by simplifying, we get x equals 14. Now what I'd like for you to do is try this one problem on your own and post your answer to Edmodo. Please be sure to include the units like dollars or inches, etc. So your problem is the problem reads, suppose you sell an item and make a profit of $50. You sold it for $150, but have to subtract what you paid initially, or what you paid from the beginning, which is 2 times the number. How much did you initially pay? So try this problem out and post your answer to Edmodo. And that's it for now. We'll see you next time.